pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joey, can you do a roll call for me, please?
Reddick?
Here.
Vogel? Here. Montgomery?
Here.
And Boozy? Here.
Okay, we're gonna follow our agenda. We're gonna start by approving our minutes, which are from August 3rd. So I read through them. I wasn't here for the meeting. Does anyone have any deletions, corrections, or additions to make?
Well, just that Chairman Montgomery wasn't here. He called the August meeting to order, so I would think you'd have to, maybe Vice Chairman Boozy should be put in there.
Yep.
I thought maybe I had been transported here in some portal.
I was embodied by you.
Yeah, I wondered why I had a headache later. Okay, so can someone please make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move that the minutes of August 3rd, 2023 of the Planning Commission be approved as corrected.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, so before we begin, I'd first like to welcome all of you to the City Planning Commission tonight. I do have some guidelines that I'd like you to follow. When you're speaking, please address the commissioners directly. Please state your first and last name, your address, your phone number, and please speak clearly and slowly enough that it can be recorded. I'd like you to try to limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. That doesn't count for my presenter. So first, I would like to know if we have anyone wishing to speak about any item that is not on the agenda tonight. Okay, so seeing none, we are going to follow our agenda. We're going to go to our first order of business, which is a public hearing. We're going to start with a special use request to allow a drive-through facility at 900 Water Tower Road for a new credit union. So is there someone here that wants to represent for this topic of the hearing? Yes? Go ahead, please stand, say your name.
So I need to go over there? You want me?
Yes, you can go over here.
All right. Hi, my name is Nick Lukes from Bosch Architecture. We're representing Consumers Credit Union. My address is 8065 Vineyard Parkway, Kalamazoo, Michigan. Phone number 269-321-5151. I'm here tonight on behalf of Consumers Credit Union. Like I stated, we are looking to redevelop the parcel at the corner of Water Tower and Perry. Currently, there's an orthodontist office there. Consumers is looking to purchase the property, build a 4,500 square foot building on there, and there's 2 remote tellers on there that are off to the back northwest corner of the site. We're utilizing this existing drive coming into the site. What we're talking about right now is a special land use for the drive-through portion of it. So they'll come in.
So you can move that however you need.
They'll come in off of the drive here, kind of loop around through here, and then exit back out back to Water Tower Road. There's 2 drive-throughs. They are freestanding. There's a little bit of canopy over them to protect the cars, but pretty straightforward. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Well, first of all, let me just ask if there's anyone here from the public that would like to speak against this proposal. Okay, is there anyone who would like to speak for this proposal? Okay, so I have to make this very clear that if no one is going to speak and there's nothing additional, I'm going to close the public hearing part, which means you won't have an opportunity to speak again. So again, does anyone have anything that they would like to say or ask? Any questions? Okay, so seeing none, I am going to go ahead and close the public part of this hearing. so that the commissioners can do some fact finding and discuss it amongst ourselves and ask you some questions.
Alrighty.
I guess I don't have any questions about the special use permit. It's allowable under the zoning. Seems consistent with everything. I have some questions when it comes to the site plan. But that's, I'm assuming, the next issue to address.
If I'll, well, Rory, anything to say?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any questions either.
Okay, so I don't have any questions either. I thought everything read perfectly clear. It sounded like you were right in line with all of our requirements and ordinances. So for this special use request, I would need a motion if someone wants to pass. You do have some wordage that you can refer to.
So I'd move that the special use permit be granted as it comports with our ordinances.
Recommended for.
Oh, sorry, recommended to the city commission for granting. Apologies.
Need someone to second that motion?
I'll second that motion.
I'll need a roll call.
Reddick,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yes?
Montgomery,
Yep.
and Boozy.
Yes.
So we're gonna now move on to our second part of this public hearing, which still revolves around the same person who's applied for the hearing. This is a site plan review for a new credit union at 900 Water Tower Road. So you can go ahead and present on that.
All right, essentially the same thing I said before. It is a 4,500 square foot building situated more towards Perry Avenue and a little bit further to the west. It's actually about the same orientation as what the orthodontist was, but a little bit closer to Perry. Utilizing the existing driveway. I think in the staff report it said we are using the existing retaining wall. That is not correct. We are building a new retaining wall right pretty much along here. There's about a 12-foot elevation drop from the southwest corner to the northeast corner of the site right now. So we're trying to balance that a little bit. There is a small retention pond here. I talked to Cody at the city yesterday. We squared everything away based on the comments that he had provided. And I know there was a couple comments regarding the lighting and the parking space sizing. Typically, I was corresponding with Michelle. Our lighting shows it's relatively bright. That's only when it senses motion. When there's not motion, the lights dim to 30% of their value. So 90% of the time, the lights are going to be at 30% unless someone's driving in the site at night. And then as far as the parking spaces, I showed 10 by 20 spaces. I know the ordinance said 9 by 20 or 10 by 18, I believe is what the ordinance says.
Yeah.
My question is can I do 10 by 18 spaces with a 28-foot drive aisle in lieu of 24 feet? And the reason is consumer standards, they typically like to have 10 by 20 spaces just because their members, the people that tend to go to the credit union are older clientele and they drive larger vehicles and they tend to take up a little bit more space. So they've asked us if we can to get to 10 by 20 just to serve their members. It gives a little bit better feeling. If I knew how to zoom on this, I'd show you actually.
I think if we go down to the bottom.
Oh, here, I see it here. So actually, what we do for our spaces is from the center to center of the space is 10 feet, but it's striped at 8.5 feet wide, if that makes sense. So this hoop is 18 inches wide. So when you park in here, it feels like it's a narrower space, but there's still 18 inches of space. And if you've ever been to like a Costco, that's how they stripe their spaces. And it makes it feel like it's a bigger space, even though it's only striped at 8.5 feet wide. It feels like a 10-foot space. And it actually is a 10-foot space from center to center. Those were the two concerns that I saw in the staff report. I'm here for any questions you may have as well.
Okay, well first, thank you so much. Let me make sure that I've asked the public here if anyone is interested in speaking against, has any concerns they'd like to speak on in regards to this hearing? Okay. Does
Staff
anyone?
would say that Dr. Delaney called this afternoon,
Okay.
asking if he needed to be here. I told him it wasn't necessary, but he wanted to voice his support for the project.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in support? Okay, so we are gonna go ahead and close the public section of this meeting so that we can go into fact finding and have some questions answered amongst ourselves, the commissioners. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close this meeting, or close this open forum for the public. Who wants to start?
Did you pick up anything?
Well, I'll start.
Okay.
Michelle, a question I have, did Public Works have a chance to look at the storm water and the detention pond? And my question for the applicant is, will the pond be dry except when there's a rain event?
So I spoke with Cody at the Public Works Department yesterday. We have a couple things we could modify. Right now, the pond is set up, it's about 3.5 feet deep. The top 1.5 feet of it is sandy, and then there's a little bit of clay in the bottom of it, so it may retain a little bit of water. There is an overflow. So what I was discussing with him was modifying where that overflow is so it has the ability to get the water out of it and not sit water in it all the time. He also had a concern about the side slopes. He said he didn't want anything less than 1-on-2 or 1-on-3, so it's actually less slope than what the minimum recommendation is. So.
Okay, thank you.
So Cody did get to review it. I think he's probably requesting a change to that overflow structure where it's located so it won't hold water. But other than that, there was no concerns from Public Works.
Okay.
And Cody and I also had a discussion, I know you had asked him about the sanitary sewer and the capacity
Yeah.
about that. Cody and I also had a discussion about that, and he didn't think it would be an issue. He was right on the same page as I was about the orthodontist office probably used more water than
Okay.
what a bank office would, and so there's likely not going to be anything that's a problem with the capacity.
The other thing, I know you provided us, Nick, a lot of information on the lighting.
Mhm.
You know, my concern is that there are neighbors very close to your lot, and I maybe not understanding the information provided. Maybe you could explain it. Will the lighting be such that it's a downward light that won't leak into the apartments next door?
Yeah, I could address that. So
Okay.
actually, there is, and you can't see it on the photometric here, these are some existing pines, but there's a whole buffer that gets planted along here that isn't factored into the lighting calculations. We don't typically put landscaping into that. It's really hard to model. And that, I mean, at the property line down here at the southeast or southwest corner, you're getting zeros, and then it's 0.2 as you go all the way, and then it goes back to 0.1, which is pretty much like nothing. And the other thing is there's just some topography here. So the difference in elevation from where our parking lot light is to where the apartments are is about 10-foot difference. So the apartments are much higher. So yeah, they're gonna look down and they're gonna see the light, but it shouldn't shine onto their property,
Okay,
if that makes sense.
it does, yeah. No, thank you.
And I know on the north property line, there are some apartments up there too. There is a little bit of a bright spot right here, but it's pretty much adjacent to some of their parking area as well. I know there's the same, where the heck? There we go. So right here, if I need to modify this light to get a little bit less light level on it, it's not a problem. It's just, we wanted to, especially that being the drive for the ATM, we wanted it to be lit up for security reasons, so.
It seemed like you have a lot of parking there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm just I guess I'm just curious why so much?
Yeah, I can explain that. So I think there's actually, so there's, let me go back to the first page. So this bank also has, or this credit union also has a training facility in it. So roughly this, I think it's about 1,600 square feet. There's room for about 25 to 40 people for training sessions, separate from the bank or in conjunction with the bank. So that's why the additional parking is there, is if those people are holding a training session, this is meant to be a regional offer for consumers. So they're looking to branch out from here. So maybe you build one north of here, west of here, Mount Pleasant, you know, go around and pick up but this would be like a touchdown space for most of their people to come in, and then the offices around are smaller. So the people from the surrounding offices, there's one in Grand Rapids at 54th Street. There's 6 locations in Grand Rapids, but if they have a training session, they go to 54th Street, do their training there, as opposed to driving all the way back to Kalamazoo to do that. So there's an area in this facility for that, and that's the reason for the additional parking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Okay. Rory, do you have anything?
No, I don't see anything that causes concern.
So more or less, and obviously there's not exactly, but aside from the bump out for the drive-through ATMs, it's roughly in the same footprint as the orthodontist office, correct?
Yeah, so if you go, here's the demo plan. So,
Yeah.
So the orthodontist office is right here. Our building will be south of that,
Okay.
let's say, but roughly in the same.
Roughly.
Yeah, we tried to utilize the same level just to not create a whole bunch of cut and fill on the site. Yeah, there will be some to create the parking lot, but the building's already there, so tear that down, move it forward a little bit, but still maintain the same rough topography in that area.
Sure. And then as to the parking spaces, I know you said they measure the way they measure, but with the way they're striped, they work out a little different.
Yes.
What's the measurement? I know they're measured from center to center.
Yep.
What's the measurement from inside paint to inside paint?
Inside paint is 8'6".
Okay.
However, the space, like the actual space is set, we calculated on center to center just to give room for doors, because it makes, you don't get the person parking on the line and the next person parking 6 inches off of it. If there's a double line there, then yeah, there's a built-in 18 inches there in between the cars that you aren't getting people slamming doors and stuff into.
Okay. And then I guess I had a question for staff. How difficult is for them would going through the variance process be?
It's gonna push them out to a meeting like October 19th.
Okay.
They could still go through with their special use process because that's a different issue, with the city commission. And then they would have to apply to get a variance to change that size.
If I need to go to 10 by 18, it's not that big of a deal to modify it. I mean, I would probably pull this parking in 4 feet, reduce these by 2 foot each, and the same thing back here, just pull this in 4 feet, reduce these by 2 feet. It's not a problem, it's just what they prefer is what I'm asking for. Sure. And if it requires a variance, I don't think that they necessarily want to do that. They're more amenable to getting it approved and going forward.
So I guess with that, I would, whichever one of the 2 approved sizes you would have, that you would prefer, I would say I'd be willing to approve the site plan with one of those 2 sizes.
Okay.
Whichever one works best for your plans, unless the commission has a preference. I don't want to speak for everybody.
How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think it's gonna be up to staff. Will you accept that? The explanation of the parking lot is not the painted, but it's between the painted stripes. Does that make sense to me? And still,
I would say that's not typically how you measure parking spaces.
is it our purview to approve the parking as is?
You cannot grant a variance.
Okay.
So they either have to go before the zoning board of appeals for a variance if they want the 10 by 20 size, or they would have to conform to either the 10 by 18 or the 9 by 20.
So you have an eraser, right?
I can fix that, that's not a problem. But the only other clarifying question I have is that I have 24-foot aisles right now. Is that the maximum that I can have? Because if I go to 10 by 18, I can just shorten the spaces and make the aisle wider. Is that acceptable? And there was a graphic in the ordinance, and it was unclear a little bit. It says 24 feet, and then but then it says the parking spaces could be 9 by 20 or 10 by 18. Well, if it's 10 by 18 and with a 24 foot, you're pretty narrow in the parking lot. So
I mean, it doesn't, I don't see anywhere where it says that what the width of the drive will be. I think the graphic does show that 24 feet in between with an 18-foot stall, but then later it says, 90-degree parking spaces, maybe either 10 by 18 or 9 by 20. So if you do a 10 by 18 space, I would say they probably, I think the ordinance is trying to decrease, I think the point of it all is to trying to decrease the surface.
and I'm open to whatever you guys decide. If we need to go to the 10 by 18 with 24-foot aisles, I'm perfectly fine with that. It's not what they would like, but it's something that they're open to accepting. So.
And the plans currently show 28-foot aisles, is that correct?
It actually shows, what does it show here?
I think they're 24 foot.
There's a couple different places. So the main aisle is 28 feet right now coming in. This aisle on the north side is 24 feet. So I can definitely reduce it. That's not the problem. It's just, can I have a wider aisle?
It seems to me a wider aisle makes sense.
Yeah.
Especially with dial-a-ride buses trying to get in there.
Yeah,
And I don't have an issue with that.
yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
If it's not specifically specified in the ordinance, I'd say we would defer to your
Yeah. I
architectural
mean, other than the
expertise.
graphic, that's the only place that I noticed it in the ordinance. So
It sounds like that's more an example of the graphic than language in the ordinance. But I'm not looking at it.
I'm browsing real quick to make sure there's none, but I don't.
So assuming it's not explicitly spelled out in the ordinance, I think, speaking for everyone again, that we'd be fine with 28-foot aisles.
So I just want to speak to you for a few minutes. So first of all, it's a beautiful spot to put a bank. It's been a beautiful place for the dentist for all these years. I wondered, is it still going to have a sloping driveway out?
So the drive actually, if you go into the next sheet here, so from where you enter to roughly here, yes, it does go uphill. So I tried to make it as straight as possible. Like right now, it comes in and turns right away.
Mm-hmm.
This comes in more straight and then turns after that. So as you come up here, you're going 1, 2, 3, 4 feet uphill in a matter of probably about 100 feet. Then you turn and you go another 4 feet, 4 to 5 feet till you get to the main parking area.
Okay, I just wondered, so we have a lot of students, if
Yep.
students become bankers at your bank,
Yep.
they, it's different than when you're going to the dentist. Typically you leave the orthodontist and you barely drive out. Students might go through and get money and buzz right out of there. It will become a fun driveway to leave in a hurry. I just wondered if you had thought about a speed bump through a portion of your drive. Is that something, Michelle, that we're...
I mean, if the board felt that it was a necessity,
Just seems like a perfect, it's kind of a long driveway, right?
I mean, like I said, it's probably about 100 feet from, maybe not even that, maybe about 70
little
feet from
shorter
here to
than-
here,
because
and
then
then
we
another
have
70 feet here,
closer.
so.
To Water Tower? Is that what you're
the
thinking?
driveway's in the same location as your drive cut's in the same location.
This drive cut is the exact same drive cut, it's just configured differently once you get into the site.
This seems kind of long, too.
as you can see, the existing site kind of comes in and turns, and right now, if you started here and got out, you could generate a lot of speed. Ours is set up roughly the same, but pretty long straightaway here. Speed bumps are not out of the question. The hard part is they're hard to maintain in the winter with plowing and whatnot. So, would it be acceptable to have maybe a removable one that we remove in the winter?
I just want, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but just something I guess I want the commissioners to think about. I just know how students, if it's Friday night and they're gonna go out, they're running through the ATM and they're buzzing out of there. It is near apartments. There are students in those apartments, I think primarily. I know there is children up there. I'm just thinking if they're zipping in and out because it's a long straightaway, kind of a fun, I don't know, it just.
I think going in, they might zip, because
Yeah, I
they're
don't see
going uphill, but
generating a
going down, they
I
gotta,
don't think they will.
well, they've got two
Because of the curves.
turns,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, if you're coming out, you have to turn here, and turn
Yeah.
here to get out of the ATM.
Okay.
The bank is only open till, I wanna say 5 o'clock,
Well,
like the inside of it, so
yeah,
it's
not
not
worried
like.
about the day, just
Yeah.
kids at night.
So, I mean, the ATM would, you'd come in, you do have to make a couple turns to get out, and, you can't really generate a whole lot of speed at 80 feet, but I'm not 19 years old anymore, so I know I could probably back then, but.
Okay, and then, I appreciate that you're being considerate of the lighting because of the residents that are all along there.
Yeah, I do want to point that out. Our landscaping plan does have a ton of trees and screening along the north and west property lines to the apartments. There's a continuous hedgerow, and then there's quite a few trees that we've added as well in there. We are saving the existing 5 pine trees here, but there are, I want to say there's 5 or 6 more trees in here, and then there's 7 or 8 along here, plus, continuous hedgerow.
And then you put a sidewalk in, can you show me where you put your sidewalk from Perry Street up?
Yeah, so the sidewalk starts right here.
Okay,
It kind of comes in, there's a sidewalk in front, and it kind of wraps around the front of the building. So it connects to Perry right down here.
okay,
There is an outdoor seating area back here, so if they're holding an event and they want to have like a breakout session out on the patio, they can. It's also a patio for the people that work there. It's the break room for the employees is right here. So there's a door here, and there's a door over here that exits to that patio. There is open seating area, or not, well, it is a seating area here and here that contains a bench and a bike rack in front of both main entrances. So if someone comes up and they want to sit down, don't want to go in or come out and sit down, there is a bench there that's provided for residents.
okay. And then is there a marquee out front or a sign that will be
There
put
is a
up?
sign out here, that's handled under a separate permit. We're working with our sign, they have one sign contractor that they use. I actually just talked to him before I came, he's putting his stuff together, he's done due diligence, he hasn't put the package together yet.
Okay, and then Michelle, you said the sewer isn't an issue, even though it's kind of at capacity? Because
Yeah.
they just don't have enough, they won't be using any more than what's been used
Yeah,
before.
that's not predicted that they're gonna use more than an orthodontist office would.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, we're talking 4 bathrooms and a break room, so it's not like there's a set of bathrooms for the training area and there's a set of bathrooms, but in the credit union itself, not a lot of people utilize the restroom. You might get some usage from but it's not like cleaning teeth and generating water from that, so.
maybe I'll give it a break. Okay, well, does anyone have any other questions for staff or?
I have one question and one comment. Excuse me, on the landscape
Yeah.
plan, I would just ask that you take a look at your shrub planting. Some of them might look delicious to the deer. We have deer in the area, so you might want to take a gander at some of those selections. And did I read that you have parking spots that are they ready for EV electric cars?
So what we do, we're building 2 locations in Lansing right now. We're getting them ready for an EV charger. It just isn't being installed at this time. So there's the conduits run out there. There's a place for it to be installed. It's just not installed. I mean, for a double car EV charger, it's about $20,000 to $25,000. So it's a pretty big expense for the credit union. And I think as EV cars tend to, you know, as there's more of them coming on, they want to plan for the future, but they didn't want to quite install it yet. So we do know the location. I believe it's in this parking island right here for a future EV charger.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? So are we thinking we want to make a motion with conditions then, or?
That's my thought.
Yeah,
Okay.
one condition would be the parking, or the size of the travel lane can be greater than 24 foot. Is that,
The size of the travel lane or the size of the parking spaces?
well, the parking space is really out of our preview.
No, the parking spaces are spelled out in the ordinance. They don't comply with the site plan.
Right.
So the ordinance just doesn't say anything about the throughway.
So, right, so we need
So
to change the
We
parking
would say
space.
that they have to comply with the ordinance in the parking spaces, unless I'm misunderstanding.
So that-
On the parking
That's
space. size.
The parking spaces are the issue. So
Yeah.
the parking spaces right now are 10 by 20, and they have to be either 10 by 18 or 9 by 20. The ordinance doesn't care which one, so whatever they prefer.
I think we're gonna recommend a 10 by 18, correct?
That would be preferred.
10 to 18.
Does someone wanna make that motion?
The only other thing I wonder about, and Michelle, you can, I wonder that before you give a permit for this, that the plans are corrected to reflect any changes.
Oh, yeah,
Is that just something that happens anyway?
yeah, we always
Then I
require a
don't-
new
then I
set
don't
of
want it.
plans before I sign off
Okay.
on zoning.
Okay.
The other condition I would say is that the plans, when they are resubmitted, reflect the changes requested by Cody of Public Works for the lowering of the drainage.
And I'll have to clarify with him because he said, when I talked to him on the phone, he's like, yeah, you can lower it. And then I got an email a couple minutes later that said, no, keep it like it is. So I'm not sure which one he wanted, but I will clarify with him.
He's had a really rough week.
Yeah, he said he was very busy yesterday,
Yeah.
just trying to follow up with me, so.
So just comply with the city
Yeah.
public works related to the stormwater.
Does someone wanna make that motion with conditions, approval with conditions?
Okay, where are we here? Special use.
Page 4,
I don't know.
here.
I'll move that the site plan, no, let's see where, is that it? Yeah, I move the site plan review application for, no, that's the agricultural,
On the wrong one.
well, I don't know.
I would move-
I move that we approve the,
Apologize, I am.
the site plan for the credit union at 900 Water Tower Road with conditions that the parking spaces be a 10 foot by 18 foot, and that the applicant comply with the Public Works stormwater ordinance.
Second?
Okay, so let's do a
Alright.
roll call. Joe?
Reddick,
Yes.
Vogel,
Yep.
Montgomery,
Yes?
and Boozy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, I
Thank
found
you
it.
very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nick. I found it.
Did you?
Yeah. They make sure I found it.
Want me to
I'm
highlight?
just slow sometimes.
It's just because Michelle gives us so much to read.
That's what the water tower.
Look, I lost it. Okay. So we are still in our public hearing mode. We're going to go on to the site plan review for the MOISD Agriculture Education Site Development at 504 and 602 South Bronson. So do we have someone that is wishing to speak on this proposal for this hearing? You can use the podium too if you'd like, but you
I'm
don't
gonna do a quick introduction
you
and
don't
hand it off to
Okay.
our architect.
Perfect.
Mark Plump, I'm Special Projects Coordinator for the NYSD. I have Gretchen Spadowski, our Assistant Superintendent of Career and Technical Education here to answer program needs or questions. But we also have Matt Heidloff from GMB Architects to answer your specific questions regarding the project this evening.
Right, ready?
Take it away.
So, good evening, my name is Matt Heidloff, I'm with GMB Architects Engineers. We're based out of Holland, Michigan. Do you want me to take my phone number too?
Yeah, if you would.
Okay. Phone number is 616-304-3915, and our address is 85 East 8th Street, Holland, Michigan. So tonight we wanted to talk about a project for the school district. To orient the site, across the street is the main school building. And then this area here is the newly constructed bus garage to the south of our property. What we're planning to do is build a agricultural education facility on site. The plan is to do it in 2 phases. The first phase is a parking lot drop-off loop and a greenhouse. And then the second phase is going to add a classroom, a barn, some pasture spaces, and a variety of agricultural amenities on the site that will be used for educational purposes. So, as you can see in this area, this is the phase 1 area that kind of shows the improvement. And then inside the bus loop drop-off area, we'll have detention ponds that will handle the stormwater for the building. Plan is in the future, the rest of the stormwater will be directed to an existing detention pond that's been built already behind the bus garage. So, forward to next. So this drawing here just really focuses on the phase 1 plan. We've got a one-way in, one-way out drive loop coming through. We've got angle parking off to this side here with a sidewalk coming across to a pavement area that will also be used for a drop-off of a bus. We're to be dropping off students after field trips or inclement weather or anything like that. And then we have the greenhouse facility located right here. We're also planning bringing a sidewalk across and then showing a crosswalk that will then lead to the school across the street, because a fair amount of students will go back and forth between the main school building and this facility throughout the day. So we're trying to really give them a safe spot to cross and, you know, really focus where everybody is traversing back and forth. So. I think that really kind of summarizes everything that we're proposing. We have been in conversation with the city about stormwater, and we plan to submit to Public Works next week for their review and approval. We've had preliminary conversations about what we're trying to meet and everything. Soils out here are really good, pretty sandy. I know a question came up whether or not this pond would hold water. It should not. After an immediate heavier rain, there may be some water in there, but it should drain down pretty quickly. And if it does overflow, it will be picked up, brought across, and then there's an existing swale that goes back to the detention pond back here. So that's kind of the overflow plan for that. So, and again, talking about the master plan, you know, we've got plans to, in the future, add an orchard in here. In the back area, we're going to be planting a lot of sugar maple trees because they plan on making syrup. We've got, like I said, pastures for the different animals so that they can rotate those through, in a barn facility located back there, and then a classroom. And then we've got got spots for different gardens, future vegetable garden, wildflower garden, all that type of stuff. So the plan is to ask for approval on the whole master plan, so that when additional funding comes on and plans are done to build the rest of it, then we don't have to come back to you for further approval. So I guess that's it, unless there's any questions or anything else you want me to touch on.
No? Does anyone in the public want to speak in opposition?
Mary Vogt. I have some questions and concerns. I live at 436 South Bronson. My son Brett is here to help me get through this, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Go.
You have any questions?
Okay.
Aye.
For clarification, this is your property right here.
It is, yeah, that's correct. Brett Vogt, you can just list me at 436 South Bronson.
Okay.
My mom's residence.
Do you have a
Not-
phone number you could give?
What's your
Phone,
Yeah,
phone number, Mike?
231-527-1672.
thank you.
So, not so much in opposition at this point in time, but looking for some clarifying questions, right?
Yeah.
Just, how long have you lived there? 20 plus
20.
years?
7 years.
Yeah. And we had some issues which created more work for me when the Career Center was across the street. They would come over on the north side of my mom's property line and destroyed her fence, smoked, left trash there, things of that nature. Right now, that house basically being vacant to the south side. It's super peaceful, super quiet, great spot for her to live out the remaining years, basically. So what we don't want to do is have it detract, cause her property value to depreciate, any more headaches or frustrations. We want to get in front of it since we're here, at this point in time. When she moved there, obviously the Career Center was there, the district was all there. We understood that coming in, right? And we've dealt with that, and that's in the rearview mirror now. So some of the questions, is this the good time to bring up some of these
Yeah.
questions, looking for some answers?
Please go
Okay.
ahead and ask Matt anything that you are concerned
Excellent.
about.
My mom did stop in, I think she spoke to you maybe, Michelle, and got some
I didn't see you, but I got a copy of the plan. Yeah.
So we've got some real small copies of the plans, and unfortunately my eyes aren't what they used to be. So it may be in there, so I apologize if it's in here, but I'm looking for some clarifying here. So one of the things is the south side, which would be the north side of the property line, where you are saying in the future there's going to be some trees planted. So what we're looking for is, trees don't grow overnight, right? And the eyesore situation, and when she goes to sell, all this basically, so when she goes to sell down the road, what's it going to look like for any prospective buyers? We've got the softball diamonds on the north side. That's great. Everybody's pretty cordial unless somebody hits a big ball and ends up in my mom's yard. Wish they would use the gate and not destroy the fence on the north side. They make it over that net that's there. But so some of the questions is the trees. We would like to see something sooner than later as far as substantial kind of a buffer in that area. And then the driveways, I think you could kind of answer that a little bit when you spoke, but that's just a bus loop basically right there.
A bus or parking loop. So yeah, we have, the entrance would be here to the north toward your mom's property. The exit would be down to the south here. We have a handful of spaces, but a majority of the traffic will be students walking over. These are kind of ancillary, teacher drives over, somebody shows up late, that type of stuff, or an event. And then also, we do have this designed so that a smaller bus can come through and drop off a group of students that they need be and back around.
Okay. Is that accurate for 6 spots right there, or is that just kind of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
We got 2 ADA and 4 or 5 standard spots there.
Okay.
And originally, we had them kind of up in this area, but decided to swing them down again, just to get them away from the house there.
Yeah, appreciate that.
And that also allowed us to add more trees. As far as the trees go, again, I think phase 2 is really dependent on fundraising. They want to get going as soon as possible, but they have the funding for the first phase, they've got to generate the funding for the second phase. And the fruit trees, you know, they'll be planted pretty dense. These, I think, are 20 foot on center to allow for growth and maintenance. We haven't picked them exactly, but I'm thinking probably, you know, apple, pear, cherry, you know, or all of them, you know, in the spring, they'll flower, be very nice, fragrant. The fall color, it's kind of hit or miss with fruit trees, but, you know, it's gonna be pretty nice, and they're pretty dense, you know, when they're planted. They might start kind of young, but we haven't really talked about the size that they'll be purchased or anything. I think ideally, if we can get larger trees that can produce fruit sooner to help with the program, the better. But we have to have those conversations, so.
Yeah, by no means am I a fruit tree expert, but I am familiar with like all the fruit trees around Sparta and the ridge over there, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know what they are on center, but they seem like they might be a little bit more dense. I mean, obviously the rows are wider, but they look like they're more dense. I don't know if it's 10 feet on center or what it might be, but I would ask for something more dense than 20 feet on center, please. And then that driveway on the north side, the inbound, there's already somewhat of an existing driveway, I think, that some busing staff uses at times and kind of pulls into the more existing driveway that's there that kind of goes up to the residence. Where would this, like, how far is this driveway from the lot line? Any idea?
This one here?
The north, yes, sir.
I believe this is the curb cut for the garage.
Okay.
It's the same location.
Okay.
So, and then we just swung this around down to this end, so.
Okay, that's definitely better than the one that's farther north, which it may be 20 feet off. You know, having buses driving in and that's the same side as of the residence that the bedrooms are on, and at 7:30 in the morning or whenever they'll be arriving.
Well, some of the bus drivers leave as early as 5:30 to 6 o'clock. And if I'm awake, I hear them, but most of the time I don't.
Okay, so you're able to, which is farther south, right? The bus drive is
Yeah,
farther south
right.
than the residence.
Sure.
So, for reference, here's the tree right here. That tree is gonna remain.
Okay.
And if we get to the next one. There's the tree right there. So the south end of this curb cut is a little bit wider because it's more for a commercial size. So the south end is very close. It does encroach a little bit to the north.
Okay, so the south end is basically existing and the north end is.
It's a little bit further north.
Do you know how wide that curb cut's gonna be offhand?
Should be right around 20. Let's see. So the road width is 24 foot, and then we have radius, 30-foot radius is swinging off of that, so
Another 10 foot on top.
probably, yeah, for the total width at the curb line.
Is there a way to move that any farther south? Or,
We could study it. The biggest challenge is we want to give enough sweep for buses to come through and properly aligned to drop off students. We don't want to move really the curb, that outgoing curb cut down any closer to the other curb cuts, which you can see, here's the bus garage and then here's the school entry. So we don't want to get things too close.
What would be the issue with just using that one curb cut to the south, move everything farther south and just use one? And I'm not in the planning business, it's just a question.
To utilize the bus?
Yeah, all is one.
There's a fair amount of grade, as you know, the street falls as you head to the south. So we're actually having to perch this parking lot up a little bit, so we've got a fair amount of grade that falls from where these parking spaces will be down to where the existing gravel is. So it'd be quite steep to get down through there.
Heading down there to that
Yep.
other
Yep.
exit.
And it was also the desire to not mix the two for the school district, just so that, you know, we don't have bus and potentially students or staff, you know, trying to get in and out one curb cut, so.
Which I respect that, but the school district doesn't, you know, have to worry about the property value or anything like that as far as my mom's residence goes. And then how about the greenhouse? That's in phase 1, I believe. How high is that gonna be, you know, and how close to the south, to the north end of that property line and the south end of my mom's?
So the, I think it's 48 feet, or my notes here. I think we're 48 feet from the property line, and the setback is 30 foot, so we're further along. Yeah, or sorry, there's a 30-foot setback, and we're at 48 feet, the north wall of the greenhouse.
Okay.
And then it's a one-story building with a sloped roof.
So like the center of it, I'm just thinking like when go out back, right now there's nothing there except grass and trees and things like that. So when she goes back and sits on the deck.
Yeah, so it looks like we're 10 foot to the sidewall height, and then we're probably another 6 to 8 feet to peak, so 16 to 18 feet tall. So really not much different in height than the house that's there now. And it is a true greenhouse, it's glass, you know.
Okay, not plastic wrap.
Correct, yeah,
Situation.
yeah.
Okay.
It's a more permanent structure.
Okay.
Water retention.
Yeah, the detention pond out front, I think you kind of touched on that a little bit. One of my questions, and I think I see it in the print, this little print, the 6-foot high chain link fence wrapped around that, is that gonna be like on the property line or?
Yes, so the plan is to eventually, we want a fence in the whole property. And we plan on putting a fence on the south side of your property and the west side of the property, so that there'll be some separation from that. And then eventually, the fence will go all the way back to the property line, come along the bike path, and then circle back around to provide security, safety and security for the entire site once it's more populated with students. So, because we understand there are some people that migrated from across the bike path over into the wooded area.
I'm sure.
That we want to try to deter, you know, in the future, so.
And one thing I worry about with the detention pond, if somebody, you know, when she decides to sell at some point in time, would that deter people with little children? Oh, I don't want my child, you know, kids are drawn to water.
Yeah, there
So
will
that's
be
what
no
I'm worried
standing
about.
water in it, maybe immediately after a heavy rain, but we plan that will drain down pretty quickly because the soils are pretty sandy. And there's actually a detention pond back here, and it's bone dry.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
so, it shouldn't be an issue. So it'll just look like a low grassy area,
Okay.
99% of the time, so.
And I'm not familiar if that ever becomes an issue like if, let's say hypothetically, the water sounds like it's supposed to drain, and I'm comfortable with you saying that, but if by chance it doesn't, how does that get addressed? How does that get rectified 4 years from now?
You would contact Public Works, and then they would pull out the plans and review them and determine, is the pipe clogged, so any overflow is not going out, or what, call the property owner and figure out what the problem is.
And the plan is that that area would be mowed and maintained, not let go, so if the lawnmowers are getting stuck, they'll get phone calls way before you'll notice
Yeah,
it, so.
okay, excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Water well.
Oh, yeah. I saw on one of these prints here where looks like there's a 12-inch water line. I guess the question is,
Yeah, so there's the existing well that serves the house. Our
Okay.
plan is to repurpose that for irrigation purposes,
okay,
on the property.
so you're gonna be running off a well, probably the same water vein that she's connected to, I would assume, right directly north of.
The well from the aquifer, so it's not connected to any city water or anything, so the plan is to utilize that so we don't connect to city water.
Okay. Does anybody have any idea what the water table is around there? What I hate to, this is probably clearly gonna use more water than that single-family residence that was there. And not being plumbed into like public water and things like that, what could that potentially do to her well? And eventually potentially cause her to have some more out-of-pocket, she's gotta sink her well a little bit farther or whatever.
That's good questions. Honestly, I'm not the civil engineer working on the project who's been kind of bird dog in the well. It's been a bit of a challenge to get information on that well. I'm not sure if we've had anybody out yet to test it or not.
Courtright Water Wells will be there Monday.
Monday,
That's the first they
okay.
could get out, so they're gonna test it, and we can determine hopefully what the depth is and everything else.
Capacity and all that type of stuff. So yeah, we've been trying to figure out what that was to double check everything. So
Okay.
that information we should have soon, so.
Okay. And correct me if this isn't the appropriate time to bring up these questions. I think this
Nope.
is
No,
my
you're
This is
first
why-
experience.
This is why we're here.
You're fine.
Okay. All right.
So is your mom's house on a well or is it connected to?
It's on a well,
Okay.
yeah, and
Okay, fine.
like everybody probably in the room, limited resources, and we wanna avoid having to drop another, I don't even know what wells go for these days, but say 10 grand into a well, that would go over very well. So. The other previous issue we had with the Career Center students, and just to clarify, there's not gonna be any gravel in this area, or my question is the parking lot for the softball area to the north, conveniently great spot to do donuts at lunchtime, and I'm going back a few years ago, actually I was there and getting peppered by stones during one of these incidents. So I wanna avoid running into that situation again. Is this all paved?
Yes, this is all planned to be asphalt paved, so.
All right. Okay, so I guess, would just like to reiterate then, just as far as like the trees go, if there's something that can be done to try to buffer that sooner than later. I think you mentioned, they were gonna be in the second phase. She's not so worried about what's to the west of the property, looking way out in the back. But what she's gonna be seeing, like I say, from her deck or from her south side of her residence and her bedroom and things like that. Just want it to be, as appealing as something like this can be, basically, and not detract from any prospective buyers or anything like that she has to deal with down the road.
That's completely understandable.
Okay. Thank you for hearing me, appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak in opposition or in favor of?
Would we feel part of that or part of the presentation? So, Yeah, great points that you brought up, and, you know, we value Mary as a neighbor, and that's why we changed some of the things, like when the architects originally came in with the driveway facing towards her house, we're like, that's not gonna fly. We talked about trees, and you know, the standard is always plant the pine trees, and personally, I'm tired of pine trees. They grow, and they grow tall, and they drop needles everywhere, and then if she was looking to the south, she'd just see a green wall, you know, and so that's why we thought that was a good location for the orchard and flowering trees that would be more aesthetically pleasing. This site is a little bit different than the Career Center across the street. I mean, that's active all day long, multiple classes, evening events. This is limited to one class of students there during the day, and you know, when the animals are there, feeding animals on weekends, that type of thing. So there's not going to be as much traffic or the nighttime traffic. You know, there may be morning traffic when the bus loops in to drop kids off if we get to that phase. You know, right now the kids could are dropped off on our side of the street and walking across. So the parking and the drives for the instructor and any visitors we may have. So, but yeah, we want to, you know, Mary's the last neighbor there, you know, besides the one to the south of the bus garage. So we're trying to be good neighbors and stewards. And may not be the place for it, but I can't speak on behalf of the board, but if you talk to Mr. Locke, there may always be an interest to get a fair appraisal of the property. The district may be interested in buying it and giving Mary a life lease there to eliminate the concern about market value down the road or something like that too. So.
And thank you for mentioning that. That was one thing as I sat down that I forgot to mention is, yeah, we're not opposed to, and to me, it would probably be a lot cleaner and easier, and unfortunately more work for you guys probably to change things up. But yeah, we're not opposed to that.
Okay.
I knew the school was there when I bought the house. I knew the softball fields. It's not like move to the airport, you know?
Yeah.
I'm probably one of the nicest people on that street now.
Oh yeah, and we're
I
not,
don't bother people.
and we're not here to create any problems. We're just
No.
trying to make it as smooth for everybody. We realize and appreciate the education part of things. And we just wanted to work out the best for everybody, basically.
Yeah. Mary's a staple of that street. We see you going out and getting your mail, and we can wave to her. And
Off, wave, whatever, you know?
Appreciate that. Look after her. I'm not always up.
Understood.
More eyes, the better.
Well, and one thing to note, I guess I'd have to look at this, but as I look at the aerial, so currently you can see where the corner of the fence is there. The property is actually further south of that. So, so where that corner of the fence is, and that looks like it continues all the way up and then turns into the garage.
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
the property looks like it's, for reference, probably might be 20 feet south of that.
For clarification, which property, like her lot line?
Her lot line.
Okay, that was my.
Our north lot line. So if you can see the separation there, there's a lot more space here than what probably you're thinking. And so the trees that exist along here, they're not on our survey because they weren't on the property. But the trees that remain will probably remain along there. So
Okay.
that's, I don't know if I can show it.
So
there's
for
some big pine trees
clarification,
there.
Can you show him on your phone what you're talking about?
if you don't
So
mind.
we can
it's
see
just
it?
clarification. Are those
No, you're
trees
fine.
separate?
No, you're fine.
Well, they look like they're on the space. See where the fence is there?
You can see her fence.
Okay, yeah, that's the north side. This is
But
the
I
south
think
side.
the property line is actually down here, so those trees might all be on our property.
Oh,
That's why
okay.
they're not on the survey. So we probably won't remove them.
Okay,
So that, a lot of this stuff will remain.
that would be great.
And then, cause that's the pine tree right there. And that's,
But that almost looks directly east of those other ones, doesn't it?
yeah, well, that's what I mean. So see this kind of hazy line right here? That's probably the property line that we're showing.
They had a driveway that went back there.
Did they?
Yeah, if you go that way a little bit, the other way, that was the other, see right about right about in
Gotcha.
a
Gotcha,
concrete
okay,
line.
they sneak in, it's underneath the
Yeah.
sea there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do you know if there's was the property staked?
I'm pretty sure we wouldn't have bought it without a survey.
You did one and there were orange signs out there, but they're long gone.
Long gone, yeah.
Looks
So-
like it's been staked and located. when I
Yeah,
pulled
because
in
there was
today.
2 parcels and we
Yeah.
wouldn't have bought them without a survey and title work,
And
so.
it almost angles rather than goes straight back.
Yeah, so we would,
Cause it kind
before
of,
we proceed, we would
Oh, yeah.
reestablish that line and
Yeah.
determine what's where.
Yeah, but what I'm observing is you see where the corner of the fence is, the property line is actually 20 feet south of that, so there's a
There's a
swath of
wide
land there that
Okay.
adds more space.
So, are you saying that this is like her southwest corner of her property
Yeah.
line?
And that's the fence further,
The
That
fence
pine
Oh.
tree is actually fully on the property, and the property line is south of the pine tree.
Fully on her property?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that made it on the plan, but the other trees didn't. would be my
Yeah, that's,
question.
I'm not quite sure why they didn't.
And then this dotted line, is that proposed chain link fence though?
This is, yes, so we have a fence offset onto our property one foot.
So the dotted line is the property line, the solid line is the chain link fence.
Yes, sorry, so that's the property line, and this is the fence.
Okay,
And
thanks
that-
for clarifying that.
That's your existing fence,
Okay,
so.
excellent, appreciate that clarification.
Okay, thank you so much for your concerns and answering all those questions and helping us to understand. Is there anyone else who has anything to say on the public side before we close the public portion? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and close the public portion. And we're going to go ahead and talk amongst ourselves, ask questions, and fact find through Michelle, anything we need to know.
I would just, on the site plan, it shows a connection road to the city's ball fields on the backside. The city hasn't had any discussion or granted any kind of approval yet for that connection, of coming in. So that just needs to be a conversation between Public Works. I did talk with the Director of Public Works and she didn't foresee any issues, but it just wanted to note that that's not something that has been approved or discussed with Public Works or the Parks Department or Park and Rec Board,
Okay,
which is probably where it will have to go for approval.
okay.
And then the other, I talked to Matt at Public Works, and he's reviewed the drainage and doesn't have any kind of concerns. It said the same thing, it's very sandy, unlikely to hold water. So he's okay with that. And I think the only issue of the ordinance that came up was we require parking lot landscaping. And there is no landscaping necessarily between their parking lot and the road. So it's under 8 point, I have it in my staff report.
8.6.
8.6. And you have the emails that Matt and I shared about the parking lot landscaping, so that's, in your hands to look at. Other than that, staff doesn't have any issues or concerns.
I didn't ask you earlier, but you never received any other correspondence in objection? Okay, thank you.
So I guess I have 3 questions. The first one I think is gonna be for Matt. There was discussion about using the existing curb cut and using the south curb cut and moving the drive wider to the north. Would it be possible to use the north curb cut and move it wider south and maintain the sweep we're talking about, or no?
Potentially. I think I'd have to really kind of study it with some of the turning radius. But the thought was to get and again, thinking more about buses, giving them adequate time to come in, turn, and then park parallel to be able to drop off in this area. What that would be, if we were to maintain this and slide this down a little bit, it would shorten this section here. And so I just have to study that.
Sure.
So,
That's what I kind of figured. I just wanted to make sure it's out there.
Yep, yep.
And then the second and third question I have are kind of the same. We have proposed future barns and future pastures. Are we talking about pastures for rabbits or pastures for elephants? And I'm being a little facetious here, obviously. But like, are we talking cows? Are we talking horses? Are we talking sheep, goats? All of the above?
Yep, cows, sheep,
Okay.
lambs.
Okay. And that leads me into, I could see this going either really well, depending on how it's maintained and the kind of students that attend the program, or going really poorly, as far as to the concern of the neighbor, as far as what it looks like. Just as a point of reference, my grandparents back over in Carlton had this beautiful house with big flower beds and a big garden and big fruit trees and the whole 9 yards, and it was great. And it was great because they maintained it. So the people that bought it didn't want to maintain that, tore it all out, and now it looks not so great. So my question is there going to be the students have the onus to take care of everything, or is there going to be staff that's employed to take care of everything? Because it sounds to me like you're trying to put in a working farm, which I think is great to get that education purpose. But are students going to be there on Sundays when cows need to be milked and stalls need to be mucked and all that kind of stuff, or is there going to be staff?
So part of this program is a state-approved program, so we have a curriculum that we need to follow that's
Okay.
been already approved by the state. And so that is part of the program, is them to help maintain it.
Okay.
So like native plants will be, growing there, and the fruits, they'll be using those to sell and to do fruit pies and things like that. We also have a full culinary program that we're hoping to utilize it also. So we have some food processing going on too. So we break down those silos, and so that we can share some of those fruits of the labor. On the weekends, yeah, if there is cows there that need to be fed and things like that, yes, we'll make those arrangements. Usually the instructor is very receptive to that. And a lot of times if the cows are the students, then they have to come and take care of that. So we haven't gotten to that part yet of the program yet, so we don't have a place to facilitate that.
So
It'll be a combination of both. I
Yep.
mean, the students and
Yep.
the staff or hired folks, and then you roll into the summer months, and as you said,
Probably won't
you
have
know,
very many animals in the summer.
if it's our animals, we're gonna loan them, out to different farms, or
Okay.
our hope is to have farmers work in collaboration with us. We'll raise them during the school year, give them back to them at the end of the school year, and they're theirs for the summer.
Okay.
Or,
Yep.
like you said, if students bring their own in.
So there might be a combination of some animals owned or leased or rented, or the term is by the ISD, and some students, I have a cow at home I want to raise for 4-H, can I bring it here for the
School
for
year.
school year?
For the school year, yeah.
Okay.
Or they may be live in the city and they wanna.
Yeah, or
do
that, yeah, yeah.
agriculture. So they don't
Right.
have a barn, so we utilize our barn for that.
Okay.
And again, that also, as you can see, we planned back here, we kind of featured the maple tree farm, so to speak. So again, the idea is to buffer the back end of the property with those trees, the south end with the orchard. And really, we tucked the pastures back where you wouldn't even know they were there necessarily, unless you got into the property or, were back by the baseball fields or whatever. But even that north of this pasture this is all open land that's beyond the baseball fields, so.
Good to know. Lori, do you have anything? Any questions?
Are there any zoning concerns with agriculture going there?
I think that was part of the packet that the recent ordinance changes allow.
So they have been before the city commission for an ordinance change to allow agricultural uses in the city.
Okay.
Only, they did specify that it was only for educational purposes, and so you're not gonna have cows on everyone's property.
And I know we closed the public section, but sir, I saw you raising your hand, so if you want to ask a question of us, by all means you can.
Yeah, it's just you guys are bringing up some questions through your discussion that now is piquing my interest. One of which, there was no mention, I didn't see anything about the potential gravel, or I'm assuming gravel driveway coming off the softball diamond, which is gonna create additional traffic on the north side of the property, dust, and I mean, we know that the softball diamonds are there on the weekends, yeah, there's gonna be traffic in and out of there, we know that and expect that. But I don't know, you know, I guess a lot of this is just unanswered questions that any reasonable homeowner should probably have, not to lose value of their residence and make it, you know, as nice for everybody in the area and the next prospective owners, and things like that down the road. So, yeah, sorry if I'm speaking out of turn when the public's closed.
No,
And then, is there like a sunset clause? I think you mentioned, phase 2 kind of depends on the fundraising. Could this be 10, 15, 20 years? Okay, that's would be a clarifying question that I have is, like how long would this stay open, I guess?
We're hoping to encourage a year.
So, if I remember the ordinance correctly.
What do you guys?
Well, can I speak to the drive too?
Sure.
So the point of that drive is for delivery of hay and livestock. It's not a regular used road, so it'd be very minimal on that part of it.
Okay.
You know, as building goes now, you know, the design, getting the contractors, getting materials, you know, a year would be perfect scenario. You know, I know the instructor and Ms. Podolsky would like to have it sooner than later, but I could see no more than a year and a half. You know, that's a year and a half to 2 would be the max.
Yeah, I would say within 2.
And we currently have 28 students in the program, and I anticipate that growing every year, so.
That's awesome.
So Michelle, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the request was made to approve this as the master plan for the building of the site. If the site is not completed as approved within 12 months, they have to reapply, is that correct?
So our time limits are, the applicant shall have 12 months from the date of approval of the site plan to begin physical construction of the project, and the applicant shall have 18 months from the date that physical construction has commenced to complete the project.
Okay.
And then they can also come back to the planning commission after that 18 months if they're not done with the project and ask for another extension.
So I know you mentioned that if and when the accessory road goes in from the park, it had to be approved by the Parks Board and that sort of thing. Would that be a sufficient change to the property to require them to come back here? Like, let's say they build all this within 2.5 years as allowed by the ordinance, and 3 years from now they want this road added later. Would they have to, is that a sufficient change to the property to require another site plan review, or not so much?
I think you can, under our site plan ordinance, there's sections. Changes in use, no, that's not change in use. So the ordinance doesn't really speak to that. It does speak to parking lots, like you have to change less than 8 parking lots and drive areas or to trigger another site plan review of an already approved project, so it would probably get into that. I don't know where that's at.
Am I allowed to talk?
Yeah, you can talk while I'm reading.
So a couple things, I guess, that, and this would be more a question for you, but something like that you could potentially, I think there are certain things that they could do a staff review on. So if you wanted to, if you were comfortable with it, maybe just write it in there that it's a staff approval, but that we need to have the city sign off.
Yeah.
The other thought is, we could probably try to meet with the city and get that, you know, approved, because I think, wasn't it their suggestion at some point? or the conversation was had during the rezoning process as an option. So we thought it was good because it would keep traffic kind of out of the way, but
And
understanding your concerns as the homeowner, that can make sense, but it is pretty minimal for, just some deliveries from time to time. It's not daily traffic going in there.
Yeah, and I appreciate you addressing that.
We thought that would be better north and just kind of out of the way, but,
Yep.
so.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Doesn't really talk about drives, it just talks about parking spaces, so.
Anything to add?
Well, wouldn't it be, wouldn't it be clearer, more transparent if we approved phase one? That includes the greenhouse. And then when the MOISD is ready for phase two, they come back to the city for another site plan review of what they have planned when it's a little more solid and clear, because there are two other buildings there that I presume, well, I guess one question is the storm detention pond size for the additional buildings, or is it only sized for the phase one?
It is currently sized for phase one, the greenhouse and the pavement. We plan to rely on the existing one that was built to the south for phase two. So, because that's quite large for what was built there. So there's capacity, we believe, there to then tie into that. And due to grades and everything, it'd be hard to push the water uphill towards the road.
Got it.
So.
Does water not flow uphill?
That's a kind of a question, Mark, to you. And
We're good with that. That makes complete sense because, there's a lot of these things that hang out there, and as you know, as we get into fundraising or construction costs, they could change, that we can't, because that middle building right there is gonna be the most expensive one, because that's a classroom. And so that's got fire code, that's got all kinds of, that could be a $500,000 building, and it's the size of this. So we've got a lot of work to do to get to phase two, and we don't really want to hold up anything. So that makes perfect sense, sir.
do you think the classroom is going to require city water?
I believe so, yes.
Probably,
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
And there's lines, or there's access off the,
There's
the bus.
Yep, there's
facility.
water that we can get access to. So, the well was just gonna be for irrigation. Any potable water, which we'll probably need at the barn and the classroom, would become city water. So, and really, I think, we did the whole plan because we wanted to put the greenhouse in the right spot. And we wanted to understand what was all happening there. So, felt that was important to tell the whole story as to what we were doing. So.
Yeah, we wanted to plan. We didn't want to piecemeal it and have not enough room to do something, and knowing that you would ask what's going to go out there in the future. So then we said, why come back twice? Why not just get it all approved at once? But you proved us wrong. We should wait.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Michelle, is that an issue with the city as far as doing phase one and then the other buildings come in? Okay. Probably the big question about the animals is the management of the waste, which would be the most objectionable. But if you don't have animals in there in the warm part of the season, that may not be as objectionable. But that would be something you'd want to, I'm sure, think about. The fence between the properties, Michelle, what's required?
Well, it's not commercial. So in our ordinance, it is by zoning district, not by use of the property. And because of that, there is no requirement between a residential and a school because of the zoning of the property. So there is no requirement for fencing between the two or any kind of buffering.
But we can recommend it, correct?
Yeah, if the board feels there's an issue, you can always make that a condition.
So, you know, we did a fence, which they're between industrial and our
In our
the trailer park, which, but I wonder, Mark, if we had some sort of a solid fence, whether it's, I'm just talking now, if it's slats to create a solid, somewhat of a solid, that's somewhat temporary, or I don't know how you feel about that. If it was
the
that-
vinyl,
the
like
vinyl,
a chain link with the
slats,
vinyl
or
slats.
a solid vinyl fence, if that's not, that might give more of a barrier.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm on board with that. And I also think that it might help, not that, 28 students isn't a ton, but I still fall back to the previous situation that we had when the Career Center was up and running. It also kind of buffers mom's residence from the incoming and outgoing traffic as well. So I appreciate that suggestion.
Thinking chain link, right?
I'm not sure, because there's a lot of different, because I had phase 2 in mind. Obviously Mary's privacy is very important, but
Sure.
the security from the neighbors to the west is a bigger concern. And so that's our main area of fence. If you look to the south parcel where our bus garage is at, we did put a white vinyl fence up where the light pollution from the buses and vehicles would hit that house. So it protects that, but it's not the whole property line. I know Mary does have a fence around, I thought it was her property, now I see it's a little further up the line. But, if we're required to do something, maybe a strategically placed white vinyl to block her house from the view, but not block her in. I can't speak for them, but I wouldn't want to just look at a white wall that whole way. I don't know.
I don't want that.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the fence is part of phase 2?
It's drawn in there if it was required.
Yeah, I think we're intending probably to at least build that section.
Yes,
Of
yes.
the fence
Okay.
north of the phase 1 property. It
In
was
phase
planned
one.
to be 6-foot chain link fence, probably black vinyl. And then we would continue it as phase 2 went to enclose the
Yes.
property.
Where are where are the heating and cooling units going to be placed around the
I believe
building.
they're all internal, but
Okay.
don't tell the architect, I'm playing architect tonight.
Well, I'm just thinking of noise and, again, the resident.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any ground mounted stuff
Okay.
outside. It would be either on or in the building. But we can I can clarify that.
And then the lighting is the same thing, and I know there was some photometrics there, but I would like you to explain it to me, how that is not going to impact, will give you the security you require and not impact the neighbor. If you could help me with that.
So yeah, it looks like all mechanical is located inside. Yeah, so lighting, we have a few fixtures. Proposed around the drive aisle. Bear with me.
I don't know if I added your photometric.
So we have 4 fixtures planned around the drive aisle. They're all pointing inward or away from or towards the road. They'll be LED, low cut off, like they'll light the pavement and very little outside of that. So,
Thank you.
you know, there shouldn't be much spillage, you know, off of the immediate area.
And the last question I had was the crosswalk. Seems like it's a very busy road. Were you planning anything other than just striping it? Such as blinking, flashing lights? I see those up in campus. They seem to be fairly
Yeah, Ferris
effective.
has the new ones that are, Ferris has some nice new solar pedestrian signs that blink.
It seems like it's a busy road, and now you've got a split campus. And I would be, I would think that would make some sense to try to increase the visibility of that crosswalk any way you could, using the LED systems.
So just because I don't know, would that be a responsibility of the ISD or of NDOT?
It's probably gonna be Public Works and.
No, I agree with Tim.
I would say it'd be a discussion with Public Works and the police department.
I don't know how it works, but I do know how it works, but I think something else, I'd be concerned about the split, and that's something you guys really have to wrestle with, I think. And whether you work with the city or you come up and help with that, because it's a busy road. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rory, do you have anything?
I just concur with Tim because that crosswalk is right at the mouth of 2 fairly busy street intersections, I guess they'd call them. Because I'm assuming the one directly across the street, that
This is one that goes into the school right here.
into the
You can
career
see.
center.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's the exit.
That's the one-way exit, yeah.
Yep. And this one is what goes into the bus garage right here, so.
City wants to put a speed bump down there, we wouldn't be opposed.
A what?
A speed bump.
Oh, no, you'll get that.
We do, it is a busy, fast road in that short distance. You know, a lot of the factories, when they let out,
That's their
people
shortcut.
cut through that way.
Right.
Our students are just as guilty, you know,
No.
when they,
Everybody does it, it's just not students.
no, it's everybody, so, but yeah, we put that in there and, you know, jurisdiction, we're not sure, like you said, if it's the city,
Yeah,
Public Works or who, but
it'd
we would
probably
work.
be a discussion with you
We
guys,
can make it part of
Public
the,
Works.
part of the approval, and I guess that'd be up to you.
Right.
And Danny.
I don't know.
I mean, definitely, you have to worry about it.
We're gonna have a crossing guard there too.
Anything else, Rory?
No.
Well, I definitely am more in line with the idea of a fence, but only if Mary wants a fence. So that's something I don't, but yeah, I would be a little concerned about animals. Definitely odor, I would be concerned. So I would expect that to be top-notch care. Sounds like the lighting is okay. I don't really have any problems with the drives and the curves and the entrances. That all makes sense to me. Sounds like our no standing water, that would be a concern. So I'm glad to know that won't be an issue.
guess the only thing I can think of to add is with this road that they're talking about coming through here, has that already been approved?
No.
And if not, they would be notified if that came up for
What
the road
road?
going from,
The access road
The
that goes
access
behind the
road.
property.
Oh,
The
it
one
has
that
not
goes
been
behind the property,
approved.
yeah, it's not approved.
okay,
The connection back here, so that would ultimately be paid, part of phase.
And
two
if
right
you're
there,
looking
so.
at just doing phase one tonight, which is, it sounds like
Yeah.
that's where you're all leaning, that road's not actually part of phase
Part of
one.
it.
So that will give them some time to get things in order correctly,
okay.
to get to that point.
Well, commissioners, you need to decide what conditions you want to address for phase one.
So I think to Tim's point, addressing the more attention we can give to the crosswalk, the better.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how to accomplish that, but I think it's a good idea.
Michelle, do you have any comment on that?
I don't know if you can require a crosswalk sign.
Can we require
You can require a discussion.
that would be
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah, a discussion with Public Works and Public Safety about the addition of a crosswalk sign.
Okay.
But I think that decision ultimately lies with those two entities
Okay,
because it's their road.
okay.
And in past experience doing that type of stuff, they'll have standards and
Yeah,
guidelines that they would want us to meet based off of traffic speeds and all that sort of stuff, so.
Okay.
um,
So the next condition would be, how do we want to
Chain link
address
fence
the, yeah,
on the south side of the neighbor's property,
yeah,
on that south line, chain link.
yeah, I mean, it's
Do-
not
do-
gonna, it would at least provide you with that line of a definition of where you,
They're discussing what type of fence you would like to see on the south side of your property line.
I'd have to look at some. I know I don't want the white, it'll remind me of snow.
Good point.
Okay,
So I'd have to look at some samples to know what I like.
Mhm.
I know I don't wanna be totally closed off. You know, with you put any trees out back, that's fine and well, cause I'm looking at all those tall weeds anyway.
Yep.
But, cause it's all open to the north with the suburbia,
Mhm. Mhm.
and I don't know.
like, if we did the chain link and then are we able to add more vegetation along there? Along that chain link?
you could ask for more vegetation. I would talk to your applicant about that because I don't know how that kind of vegetation and fruit trees, you have, I don't know enough about that intermixing if it causes a problem or not.
Well, and whenever they say fruit trees also, down by my place in Sparta, they've got a lot of hybrid fruit trees that are actually just grown on wires now and are springing out. I don't know if you're just planting a conventional apple tree or whether, I've got to think you're the school, so you'd be doing some sort of hybrid
Probably doing a little.
planting there, but whenever I look across those orchards, you can't see more than 2 rows into it. Opposed to older orchards, but still most of the branches are still down within 6 feet, 8 feet of the ground. So,
I guess I haven't noticed those. How high does something like that go, the hybrid?
the hybrid, right now, they look like they're about 8 feet.
Okay.
And I think that orchard's about 10 years old.
out of curiosity, whereabouts is that in relationship? as far as-
So go north on Division to just before the, Moose on Division, and then 14, just north of 13 Mile Road.
Just north of 13?
Yep, and just before the Moose Golf Course there,
Oh,
you
okay.
make a right, and then you're backed into that whole apple groves and
Okay.
stuff, so.
Check that out, just out of
Yeah.
curiosity.
If you turn on 14 Mile off of 131
Yeah.
and run it till it dead ends,
Planning.
it goes left right
If it's
there,
chain
and
link,
it brings you around to the backside of Lake,
Okay,
and in that area, it's right there.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
Mark, go ahead.
I guess for clarification, what are we trying to get to with the fence? Is it keeping people off the property, or is it noise, sound pollution, or, because it's gonna look a little bit funny if, when we rediscover the survey stakes, like I said, Mary's Yard's fenced in. If we come 20 feet south of that, put another chain link fence, you're gonna have double chain link fence, and then vegetation, so, or do we want a wood? Like I said, I envision some sort of privacy, but not blocking her all the way in.
Right.
You've enjoyed the view, but,
Well, not only that, you get in the deer's way.
yeah.
You know.
We're not gonna build tall enough fence for them to, they're still gonna jump.
From my house already.
Decision to phase 2 and let them look at options they could.
I mean, a chain link fence will keep any students from getting on that 20 foot of her property.
I heard that's what the applicant said, he's concerned about that pedestrian traffic, right? Going through her property, and I think that's what I heard was a concern. The lighting shouldn't be an issue. She doesn't want a solid fence, so.
Chain link.
What are you planning to put around the outside of your property? I mean, is it chain link? Is that what you were thinking? You know, if whatever you're gonna do, tell us give us feedback, and then we can add that into it. And then somehow, we should probably state that some sort of landscaping, whether it's, for a short period of time until you decide, have funding to go phase 2, something that would help.
Buffer.
Some sort of buffer that you could talk with the residents about. So I mean, we're good, I would be good with that, but.
Instead of the fruit trees, or?
No, just until you get to the point of.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that's phase, I heard it as phase 2, if you're gonna put the fruit trees right up, then I think you guys I have an issue with that, and I don't think Mary does either. But that.
Yeah, we gotta be prudent with finances, so if it costs us 10 grand or 20 grand to put shrubs in, and it's 50 grand to put fruit trees in, we're gonna put the fruit trees in instead of putting something in and tearing it out.
Yeah, no, I think makes sense to me.
I'll study that a little bit more. I mean, again, looking at the aerial, I'd say, is there a way to draw anything?
Probably. There's
So-
highlight.
It looks like, I would say from this back corner up until this area right here is already, there's trees and stuff growing there.
Okay.
Like I said, it's not shown on our survey because it wasn't on our property, but now that I noticed that corner of the fence, I want to verify, but I think there might be pretty dense plantings there already.
Okay.
If we put the fence in, she might not see most of it. If the plantings only stop a little bit before her garage,
Okay.
to where she could see directly to the neighbors. There's not much there.
Okay.
So we can study that, and there may not be space to put anything else along there, or if we do, I guess if anything, put a couple evergreen trees, but they would be on her property but we'd have to talk about that,
Yeah, I think we'd be open for discussion with that. And was there a mention about like black vinyl chain link fence?
I think that's typically what we're planning. I mean, there's also brown and green, but black is pretty much the standard.
I think
red,
black looks
red.
better than the correctional facility
Yeah.
galvanized.
Right.
That's exactly what they should
Yeah.
be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's much nicer. And you don't even really see it,
Okay.
so to
Exactly.
speak,
Yeah.
so.
So that sounds like we're unanimous on the
So maybe we say black chain link
black,
fence.
yeah.
And then can we leave it open to discussion? They do make like the vinyl slats that slide down in there. If there's a spot, or maybe the trees, if the trees are planted soon, or whatever's reasonable, and they're of reasonable height kind of thing. Like maybe all this discussion is for nothing, but can we kind of leave it open to vinyl slats in the area potentially if,
So-
How do you put that in?
I guess, Mark, is your plan to have fruit trees as phase 1 or phase 2? I guess that's more the qualifications. and what
Well,
we gotta do.
It was originally phase 2, but now I say it depends. Because like I said, if there's gonna be requirements for a bunch of stuff,
Sure.
then we're not gonna put it in and tear it out.
So, I guess personally, to kind of split the baby, so to speak, if we require the black chain link fence now, I think the neighbor's happy with the current vegetation that's on their property. And if the fruit trees are gonna be part of phase 2, then we can come back, like you're saying, open for discussion later. And fruit trees go in and it's part of phase 2 and we have more of that discussion. We know exactly where the trees are gonna be, what they're gonna be, and how quickly they're gonna be tree size as opposed to saplings or whatever.
Jacob, if I can qualify that.
Sure.
We're satisfied with the current vegetation with the view that we have.
Right.
With the house, and it's basically just a yard back there and things like that. But now when you introduce the greenhouse,
Sure.
48 feet off the property line, and on where it's gonna be positioned in relationship to my mother's house, that changes things up a little bit.
Okay. So to clarify, you would want some kind of,
The more buffer in that area, the better.
Right.
Not necessarily the whole property line. I don't,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
where her garage is and out the front is, that's not really the concern. But having a decent view out the back,
Okay.
and not to detract from her curb appeal, what there is of it. But the more would be the eyesore of looking out the back, and now basically it's gone from residential to, lack of better term, somewhat commercial with the greenhouse and things like that. I know your zoning,
so as I understand the plans, the greenhouse would currently be screened by the trees and things that are currently on the property. Phase 2, when all that's put in, would include screening on would be the west end of the property, towards the back?
Yeah, phase 2 is definitely to the west and to the
Yeah.
back. However, the trees that are on the property line, I think somebody mentioned about the pine trees. They're scrub pine trees, and
Okay.
60 feet tall or something like that. So unfortunately, everything that's gonna be done is gonna be below, for the most part, of the trees that
Oh,
are
I
there.
see, where the base of the.
Yeah, from what I recall, I
Understood.
don't make it up here super often, but when a tree blows down, I'm up here.
Sure.
Fortunately, not. It hit us pretty hard in the Comstock Park area the last storm, but not up here, thank goodness.
So this is a little crude, but I'm eyeballing some stuff, but the existing trees are roughly in this area. The garage sits right here and the house is right here. You can see how far back the greenhouse is compared. So even from the house, the view, you may not see the greenhouse depending on what's happening with the vegetation along here. So, but again, this is something I think if I can get back to my computer, pull an aerial in, I can rough some of this stuff in to tell a better story of what's gonna be. But you may not, depending on how dense that is down at the ground, you may not even see the.
And that's all we would ask for,
Currently,
basically,
you know.
the less the better.
So if we said that a contingent be a fence with the type and color and.
Well, I think
That is-
they've stated they're going to, they've stated on public record, they're gonna put a 6-foot high black chain link fence.
Okay. So that's already there, so we don't have to talk about that. All we need to then discuss is that there be some sort of buffer along with the fence that is mutually acceptable to the school district and the neighbor.
And you could word it that way, and I can help mediate that if need be.
If we add the language subject to staff approval, does that help?
Yeah.
That's probably better.
And then, if they can't come to agreement or they're not happy with the agreement that's made, you have phase 2.
Right.
To have further discussion.
That sounds good.
Okay, so any further discussion we have?
I'm trying to think of
Go ahead.
something.
There hasn't been any discussion on the landscaping in the parking area.
Oh, yes, okay.
I can, at least my opinion on it
Okay,
is
yes.
that I read the material, I'm in agreement that putting anything in the way could create a visual impediment to law enforcement or just more to the traffic issue and pedestrian traffic. So I'm okay without any landscaping there. I hate to say it, but makes more sense to me. But I'm anxious to hear from the others.
Is there something that's required? Did she say that's important? Michelle, did you say that that's a requirement or something?
So, hold on, let me get to that section.
I think the language of the ordinance, something to the effect of maintaining, as noted in the email, curb appeal and consistency with the surrounding area, but I think it also mentions some kind of, specifically some kind of
It's
shrubbery.
super vague,
I think
yes.
the planning commission also has
Right, so, okay.
Greenbelt required along the public right of way. A greenbelt shall be planted adjacent to the right of way within private property of any public street or approved private street. The greenbelt planting shall be planted within the required front yard or side yard setback of the principal structure. The planning commission may allow such planting to be placed anywhere within the front yard if there is no front yard parking.
What's the prescribed planting? Because to me, a well-maintained yard would also be considered greenbelt space and consistent with the school.
I'm okay with
One
that.
deciduous canopy tree per 30 linear feet of frontage, including any openings for driveways, walkways, or easements. The planning commission may approve substitution of evergreen trees for up to 50% of the required greenbelt trees. Upon determining evergreens would be consistent with the existing character of the area. They have to be regularly spaced. It can't be, there's height limitations. That's it.
So like Jacob said, a well manicured yard.
Well, if the ordinance specifies some kind of tree, then that takes away the leeway we would have in defining green space, greenbelt.
So it doesn't say anything about shrubs. So it says it shall include only living materials and planting beds, except for approved sidewalks, signs, driveways, and essential services. So I think you can probably get away with not having shrubs. But I don't think you have the authority to not require trees.
Does staff have a recommendation? Do you see something that makes sense?
How long is your section there? Between about.
Good question, I don't know how to measure on here.
That's just a
Said,
PDF.
We put one
Yeah,
tree
so
every 40 feet.
Eyebrows or.
I think it's 520 feet.
528, so you've got one tree per 30 feet.
Make it 40 feet. They'll be healthier that way,
Yeah, we could do 40 feet.
unless the ordinance stipulates the distance.
It says 30 feet.
Yeah,
Does it
ordinance
say,
stipulates.
well,
It
bless me.
does,
Our landscape ordinance is very stringent.
really.
Yeah.
Mark had his hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna, sorry,
So, question,
Yeah.
if what you said earlier, like the ordinance didn't apply to school, only commercial for the fence, does that happen here with that requirement?
It doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
This is for a specific district.
Yeah, we've got 264.
264 feet, so you'd need,
Well, that's across the, or I'm sorry, we've got 132 across the house property and then whatever we're creeping down. So we're probably less than that. We're probably at 160 that we're developing.
Sure.
Because we're developing part of the bus garage property to the south, because we're
Right.
straddling, so. I think I guesstimated there's every 30 feet, yeah, but, so when I looked at the character of everywhere else, there are no street trees along that section of the road
I know.
at all. And then also I looked at the bus garage property, that's a recent project. Again, I don't know if it went through planning commission, but nothing was, there's like maybe one tree planted out there.
One as well.
But nothing was required there, so in keeping with the character and the safety concerns, visibility into the site, that's kind of where we landed, where we did, but,
Well, maybe we could, I guess if that's the case, we could, the condition is that the landscape ordinance be followed, using approved street trees at the ordinance distance. If staff reads and finds that maybe the plan commission has more ability to not follow that, then we would just as soon not put any, because it's a safety issue.
Exactly, yeah.
Something
I
like that.
agree with that, yeah.
I don't know.
I guess the other thing I could suggest is if we do the math and figure if we need 4 trees or 6 trees, could we plant them in groupings in that front area that would be in the character, but still maintain the main views back into
Yeah, I
the
don't
school?
think the ordinance specifies
Yeah.
the spacing, it just specifies a number per distance.
yeah,
Right.
so you
like,
can
if you
group.
have 120 feet
That's
Yep.
better.
and you want to
That's
put
That's better.
4 trees in one area,
Knock
so-
yourself out.
I guess if we, similar to the fence or the language, if we add subject to staff approval,
Yeah.
be following the ordinance,
Sounds
I
good.
think that's,
We'll plant sugar maple trees and then we can pull
You can
some
tap 'em.
off.
Yeah, great.
so anything else we haven't covered as far as staff is concerned?
That was my only,
Okay.
I'm gonna say, can I make a condition one of the cows I continue?
I think that might be outside the purview.
It's the one of those cows.
you can go.
So,
Are we ready to make a motion?
Sounds like that.
Can you make it?
So I move that the site plan review application for agricultural education center phase 1 at 405 South Bronson Avenue be
504.
504.
504, thank you. Be approved with the following conditions. One, that the crosswalk across Bronson be discussed with the Public Works and Public Safety Departments. Number 2, that city staff mediate the buffer along the south line.
North. It'd be this property's north line.
Okay, then this property's north line with Mary Vogt's property line and the landscaping along Bronson, South Bronson Avenue.
Be subject to staff approval.
Subject to staff approval for both of those.
Second.
Ruddick?
Yes.
Vogel?
Yes.
Montgomery?
Yes.
And Boozy.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna follow the agenda. We're gonna move on to item 7, which is general business. And we are going to receive an update on previously approved projects from staff.
Yeah. Tim asked that, or Oval asked that I add these to the agenda for all of our meetings. I think it's a great idea because I always forget to follow up and.
I do too. I think it is a good idea.
So the tower got all of the improvements or approvals that it needed from like the FCC and all of those, the airport manager, MDOT, everyone signed off on everything for the tower. So I think they're looking at building permits. In my experiences from tower companies is they usually build a year to a year and a half after they get approval because it takes that long.
Okay.
So I don't know where they're at in the building, but they did get all the approvals they needed. The rezoning request for the apartments that went to the city commission was denied at the city commission. I have not heard from the applicant again, so I'm not sure what's going on through there. And Rust Avenue, which we did at the last meeting, was approved by the city commission, and they approved the sale of the properties. So those will be going to, they've been sold to the builder, and I think he's pulled his building permits or is in the process of pulling them to get them started. So that's my updates on previous projects and city commission actions related to your guys' recommendations.
Nice.
Could we ask one more thing be added, and that is the update on the master plan?
Yes.
Yep.
May we add that? The update on the
Yep,
master
I can
plan?
update, yeah.
Thank you.
The master plan is going great so far. We've gotten 2 chapters to kind of browse through, our demographics chapter and our natural features chapter. They look great so far. Our survey is still available online through Monday. We're shutting it off on Monday because we have to stop it at some time, and it's been a month. So we're shutting it off on Monday, so get the word out to take it. So far we've had, I think, like 198 people take the survey, which I feel like is a pretty decent amount. Could be better, but I don't think it's terrible. People can also get it at City Hall. We are going to be getting ready to do our focus groups meeting. So we divided the city up into 6 different neighborhoods, and we're grabbing residences from each of those neighborhoods to pull into a focus group with our consultant, and they're going to have like specific questions for them about their neighborhood and the city, and kind of have a sit down with each of those groups. We did it by neighborhood because we thought that would be where people are most comfortable.
Yeah, that's good.
And we're hoping that it also creates some unity in some of those neighborhoods that don't have a lot.
Yeah, that's nice.
Knowing the unity.
Huh?
bring on the unity to my neighborhood.
That's really all I have for the master plan update. They're still plugging away. We should be getting more teeth type stuff soon, once we get, survey results back and the focus groups, and they can digest all of that and put it into a report that will have a lot more teeth to it than, I think, the demographics and the natural features, because we are pretty familiar with those. The one thing in the demographics that I thought was interesting is we had lost, 4,000 people? The city had lost 4,000 people in the last 10 years, or 15 years, which I think I didn't realize that. So I don't know how much that has to do with Ferris enrollment. And
It's funny, they say we lost 4,000 people, but wouldn't that give us 1,000 surplus houses for rent?
You would
Well-
think they're students.
Yeah, it was student traffic that wasn't counted during COVID.
well, I mean, that's without using our decreased COVID number. So the city had a population, when they did the census, what you see on the census information isn't accurate. The city petitioned the census that our population was counted incorrectly because they didn't include about 2,500 students that were attending Ferris in the dormitory that weren't there because of COVID. So we petitioned the Census Bureau. They updated the number. They agreed. They updated that number. But when you go on to the Census Bureau website, they don't update it. It's just used for the financial part of the money coming to the city. So if you look on the census data, it's still gonna say like 7,000 something. So, but we're,
First is also in the process of, I'll say, consolidating their residence halls. So they may have a factor on it too.
so that's kind of where we're at with the master plan.
Can I move down the agenda? Is
Yeah.
there any unscheduled business?
Well, we missed short-term rentals, or do you want to skip that and do it another night? Are you guys?
Skip it and do it another night. Does the rest of the commission agree, or do you wanna go?
Skip it.
Okay.
All right. And then housing education the same?
Yes.
Okay.
I know, I'm very interested in the lighting documents that you provided.
And what?
The lighting documents that were provided. I'm kidding. Yes, skip it.
Okay, so do we have any unscheduled business? No? Okay, so I'm gonna say that we should adjourn this meeting, so I'm adjourning the meeting at 8:38.
Thank you for saying it.
Joe, I'm glad you got the memo.